Yeah, I'm okay. Nice shot, kid.
Flash?
Coming.
With the introduction to the multiverse in the new Peacemaker series, it had me wondering this was going to be a further explored concept within the DC universe. I mean, we've gotten confirmation on characters such as Sister Symmetry, Ms.Liberty, Five, etc. While I don't doubt we'll hear from or see Golden Age characters like Jay Garrick or Alan Scott, I wonder if they'll be relegated to Earth 2 or have their stories take place on Prime Earth, same as everyone else. In this video, I plan on going over the complicated history of Earth 2, its inhabitants, and ways to make things more digestible for new DC fans. This will help me answer the question, does DC need an Earth 2? Now, if you don't know about Earth 2, I'll give you a brief history lesson. The Golden Age of comic books was a time where the first cycle of superheroes would debut. It fully introduced the concept of superheroes to the public. While Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman stand to be very consistent throughout the years, Flash, Green Lantern, and the Atom were pretty different. Jay Garrick was a college student who breathed hard water vapors. Alan Scott found the Starheart after a devastating train crash. And Al Pratt? He was just short. These were characters that helped build the first superhero team, the JSA. Eventually, they began to fade out of popularity, so new characters were introduced to take their place. Barry Allen was a man struck by lightning. Hal Jordan was a pilot who discovered a ring powered by will. And Ray Palmer? He can become short. Anyways, these heroes would start a new era called the Silver Age and would sort of act like a reboot for DC. However, it did create this major problem. Where were their predecessors? The Flash comics at the time acknowledged Jay Garrick's stories as a work of fiction within the story, so we assumed the rest about the others. That wasn't until Flash of Two Worlds dropped and changed everything. Artist Carmine Infantino helped birth this idea of having the original Flash and this new Flash at the time meet each other. While it's not like it was a completely new idea for DC at the time, the effects of this story have greatly impacted the greater multiverse because of it. This story had Barry Allen accidentally send himself to the world in which Jay Garrick resides. A Jay Garrick, mind you, who is already long since retired, but is brought back into the fold when meeting Barry. They both work together to take down Jay's group of rogues, and this gives Jay the motivation to become the Flash of his Earth once more. Due to the popularity of this book, it was decided to have Jay Garrick come back again, and this time bring back some of his allies. 1963 would be the first time we finally get to see the multiverse explored with Crisis on Earth 1. In that year's Justice League book, Earth 2 became a place for all the heroes exclusive to the Golden Age to reside in. This Crisis became very popular and allowed for DC to do more with these Earth 2 characters. Since this was an alternate universe outside of main continuity, they could actually allow for the heroes to age and grow. Batman became police commissioner, Superman finally got married to Lois Lane, and Dick Grayson still held on to the Robin mantle even as an adult. This would even lead to the addition of brand new heroes like Power Girl, Huntress, Jade, and Obsidian. Of course, this wouldn't stop at just two Earths. There was a whole multiverse that was being built. There was an Earth with a dark reflection of our heroes known as Earth 3, and an Earth with the Shazam family known as Earth S or Earth 5. This led to some real fun stories, but it was also causing so many problems. It was causing a crisis. One huge storyline with nothing but bad adaptation, sadly, was set to fix all the problems that arose from having this huge multiverse. This was known as Crisis on Infinite Earths and was released from 1985 to 1986. This was a major crossover event at the time that had heroes from all over the multiverse team up to take down the Anti-Monitor. So much damage was done during this event that at the end of it only 5 universes remained, and they all ended up being merged into one, which would be known as New Earth. This event pretty much stored all the popular Golden Age and Silver Age heroes all in one universe. Doing this would change some things, of course. For instance, the JSA's history is very heavily tied to World War II, so they simply had those characters be the debut example of superheroes, while someone like Superman being very heavily inspired by them. Also, side tangent, on Superman, they were very adamant that Kal-El would be the last Kryptonian ever, so they decided to have Supergirl be this shape-shifting alien called Matrix. Then have her be this half-angel woman called Linda Danvers. While Power Girl would end up being Atlantean for some reason, and Supergirl only had powers similar to Kal's, but in no way was he Kryptonian. This didn't just affect Superman, but also Batman's mythos as well. Huntress still existed, but pretty much became a different character with the same first name. Rather than being the daughter of Batman and Catwoman, she was the daughter of a wealthy family that was wiped out by the mob. This would last for quite a while until we got the Infinite Crisis storyline in 2005. The purpose of the story was to bring back the multiverse as a whole. Skipping forward a few years, later we would have the New 52, which rebooted the multiverse again. And it was all because Flash wanted to save his mother.
Oh, someone misses their mommy!
Man, if I had a nickel for every time Barry Allen was the start of a reboot, I'd have like 2 nickels. In actuality, this was really Dr. Manhattan's fault, not Barry's. But what matters is that we got a brand new version of Earth 2. Like most of the New 52, this was meant to be a modern reimagining of the most popular Golden Age heroes. It pretty much got rid of the World War II aspect that seriously dates the characters and had the Trinity be the first generation of heroes that would sort of inspire our main cast. This leads us into Jay Garrick, who got his powers from a Greek god, Alan Scott, who got his powers from the Green, and Al Pratt. Well, he can... Oh my god, he's huge! Anyways, these guys, along with a rebooted Power Girl, Huntress, and Hawk Girl, would be our new wonders. This would be a universe without the Trinity, until they brought back the Trinity, of course. A lot of things involving the New 52 would eventually be forgotten, including this new version of Earth 2. Sometime after Rebirth, DC would attempt to bring back characters to how we last saw them, or at least to how they were most popularly seen. That was from pre-Flashpoint. This means we got old Jay Garrick back, and even Alan Scott, although him being gay ended up carrying over for his character, which was a different change, I'll say that. Now that we have gone over the history of Earth 2 heroes, I want to go back to the question posed in the title of this video. Does DC need an Earth 2? Obviously it needs the JSA and all its adjacent characters, and if you disagree, you are wrong! But the question of whether or not they should be in a separate universe is something to think about. This isn't just something the comics should think about, but other media like movies and TV shows, so let's talk about it. Some arguments that could be made for the new Earth path is that it allows for more relevancy. By this I mean that in the case of going the Earth 2 route, there's a possibility of the characters losing their relevancy. We won't see them interact with our main cast of characters too often since they'll be in a different universe and can be very easy to write off in that sense or forget about. It also can make team-ups in general rather difficult, since being in another universe would make these crossovers harder to pull off, but putting them all on the same Earth will allow for crossovers to feel more natural. We have to look at the fan viewpoint as well. Most if not all major events in DC happens on the main Earth or Earth 1. If we have the JSA and other Golden Age heroes on Earth 2, then we'll just limit their exposure and relevance. I, for one, would love to see all the Flashes interacting and being able to do that so freely, and then one Earth will help that. It's also nice to have a group of heroes that our modern favorites happen to aspire to. Now, how will one go about this? Well, after Crisis, all the popular Golden Age and Silver Age characters would be placed on one Earth. This would be called New Earth, and since we already know how things are going on there, let's talk about if other media were to go with this approach. There would have to be a timeline built to make things easier, so let's start with the 1940s. Like I've said before, being a part of the 1940s heavily dates the JSA. At their youngest, they would have to be around 18, and that would be near the end of the war. Even then, they would currently be close to 100. There are some ways around this to make things work better that I think DC have used before. Method 1. This would have all the heroes from the Golden Age be retired. They don't fight crime anymore, and they're glad to know a new generation of heroes is willing to fight for what is right. This does sort of limit the possibilities at potential crossovers, unless you're willing to use time travel to have these heroes meet each other. Method 2. Speaking of time travel, this is another method of keeping them relevant in modern times, and there are two ways to go about it. Option 1 will be Captain America style and have the heroes all be trapped in ice or another dimension that they can't escape from until they are eventually found. Option 2 would just have the heroes be sent far into the future at the end of the war, and they now currently live in the present. Either option could explain their disappearance from the world and why there were no superheroes until Superman. Method 3. This is something that has been used before, and that is giving them an anti-aging potion that basically keeps all these heroes in their prime. Maybe at some point they decide to reverse the effects of the potion and happily retire once the Silver Age heroes prove their worth. My only problem with this method is that I feel as though there should be a huge gap between the JSA and Superman first showing up. Method 4. This method sort of piggybacks off of 1 and 3, and this involves having the heroes retire or go into hiding not because they want to, but because they have to. This method deals with heroes being considered illegal. Thinking about it like the plot of Incredibles, where the Golden Age heroes have to just sit back until Superman and the Justice League arrive and allow for the JSA to come out of hiding. Although I'm pretty sure it's been done in the comics too. Now, that fixes some of the older heroes of Earth 2. I'm not going to count Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman because their Earth's counterparts are pretty much the same people. But what about the newer generations of heroes after the JSA, such as Infinity Inc.? Well, these are a lot easier to fit on one Earth, right? Let's start with Power Girl. Power Girl is a character with very complicated origins, and in the pre-52 era, she was still part of Earth 2, but just happened to be the only survivor. Assuming there is no multiverse to begin with, here are ways to implement her. Method 1. Have her be a Daxamite. Her origins would be similar to Mon-El's, which would be her being a Daxamite who came to the planet as an adult with very little memories of her past. She would at first assume she is Kryptonian and connect with someone like Kara. Once she gets her memories back, she learns that she is in fact a Daxamite. It's because of this that she decides to take on the name Power Girl due to how different she is from the Kryptonians, so calling herself Supergirl or Superwoman just wouldn't feel right to her. Method 2. The clone route. For some of my Justice League Unlimited fans, I'm sure you remember the Galatea arc, an evil clone of Supergirl with a shockingly similar design to Power Girl. One way you can go with Power Girl is by continuing where that arc left off. After being defeated by Kara, Galatea begins to understand the error of her ways and try to be heroic like her genetic template. She ends up adding more to her actual costume and calls herself Power Girl to separate herself from Kara. You don't even have to go the evil clone route. Maybe try something similar to the Clone Saga from Spider-Man and have her think she's the real Kara. While the Galatea route is something that can work, clone stories can be pretty messy, so while I still will pitch it, I don't necessarily recommend it. Method 3. The time travel route. You can have this version of Kara be from a dystopian future with very few heroes left. All the remaining smartest people on the planet build a time machine to send one person back, and this would be Kara. In the present, she is able to defeat said threat with the help of the Superman family. Future Kara gets stuck in the past, and seeing how there is already Supergirl in this time, she becomes the new hero Power Girl, and takes up the secret identity of Karen Starr. Method 4. the sibling route. In this method, we would have Power Girl be Kara's sister, who was the same age as Clark during the destruction of Krypton. Unlike her sister, she wasn't trapped in the time vortex, but she was sent to another planet. She would live her life on this planet before eventually discovering there are other Kryptonians in the universe, and try to meet up with them. This would also have her appear older than Kara, since she aged normally. Method 5. New Mantle. Instead of trying to find unique ways to separate them, I just decided to have them be the same character. What would happen here is that maybe after the death of Superman, Kara believes she just isn't worthy of the super title, and decides to take up her own identity. Those are some of the ways you can have a Power Girl be a part of Prime Earth without involving Earth 2. I won't lie, not all of these concepts are perfect, but I'm sure there's a good writer out there who can make them work. As for Huntress, the best thing you can do is just have one Huntress and let it be Helena Bertinelli. If you do want to see how having both can work, I have some methods. Method 1. Possible future. Let Helena Bertinelli be Huntress in present day setting, while Helena Wayne being Bruce and Selina's daughter in a future in which they get married. Method 2. Time travel. This kind of piggybacks off the first one and involves having Helena be a time traveler that helps the Bat family at some point. She also wanted the chance to meet the original Huntress who inspired her, but plot twist, Bertinelli gets inspired to become the Huntress after seeing her future successor, sort of causing a causal loop in which they both inspire each other to become Huntress. Jade and Obsidian are pretty easy to understand and don't rely too much on multiverse shenanigans, so I won't be changing them too much. Now that we have helped make use of the New Earth method, let's make an argument for Earth 2. There is a good argument to be made about legacy, and by having two Earths, one with and one without the JSA, you are able to respect them as the first generation of heroes on one Earth and have Superman be the first ever superhero on another. This also creates a far greater distinction between the two groups. Having your more modern heroes on Earth 1 and having your older heroes on Earth 2. If you want to go for the more modern comic book, you go to Earth 1. But if you want to feel that classic old school writing style, then check out Earth 2. Think of something like Batman Brave and the Bold. That had more of this campy but classic style to it. Being on Earth 2 is also a great way for the JSA to have their own distinct identity and stories. Earth 2 has so many of their own characters that just shoving them on main Earth will make them feel overcrowded. Especially given how DC keeps dropping new characters left and right. Keeping the JSA and the adjacent characters on Earth 2 will help make sure their uniqueness is preserved. Now we can talk about Earth 2 and how things can possibly work there. So how exactly would this Earth 2 function? Well, I can imagine this setting being a lot more like how we see it in the Flash TV show, or Fantastic Four First Steps. By that I mean it will look like the retro-futuristic world where people still use the technology of that time, but in far more advanced ways. This way they are both technologically behind and ahead of the people on Earth 1. The history of the JSA will still tie them to World War II, which would take place in the same time frame. After the war, these heroes would still be pretty active, up until a new generations of heroes began to show up. These heroes would be Batman and Superman. Wonder Woman would probably be one of the heroes who have helped out in World War II, with her later becoming a member after spending more time in man's world. Either way, the JSA would act as sort of mentors for these new heroes. Batman and Superman would have lives very different to their Earth 1 counterparts. Batman would go through most of the same Batman stuff, even having Dick Grayson as his Robin. We do also get a Batwoman and a Batgirl, Catherine and Elizabeth Kane respectively, but they do not end up being romantic love interests for each other. Instead, the Batman of this Earth would eventually catch feelings for and marry Catwoman instead. This ends up changing Selina's ways, and she becomes a permanent member of the Bat family. Cut to years later, with Bruce and Selina having a daughter named Helena. She is mostly being trained to be the next Robin, while Dick at this point held on to his Robin role for a while until eventually evolving into Red Robin. Once Bruce decided to retire, he would become Gotham's new police commissioner and gave Dick Grayson the role of Batman, with Helena as his Robin. I wanted this Earth's Bat family to be a bit different, so I decided to combine elements of the pre-Crisis Earth 2 and the New 52 Earth 2. Bruce is a lot more happy in this universe. He's got a beautiful wife, 2 great kids, and a butler that was there from the very beginning. In terms of character, I decided to have Bruce be more like his Batman Brave and the Bold counterpart. Alfred would be a lot more similar to his debut, so rather than him being known as Alfred Pennyworth, he'd be Alfred Beagley, and he'd be a lot more chubbier. Dick Grayson would act more like his Burt Ward counterparts during its time, saying things like "gee golly" or "holy moly." What separates him from the Dick Grayson everyone knows is that he actually wants to be the next Batman and cares a lot about continuing the legacy. Catherine Kane and Bet Kane will pretty much just be their own thing and not try to base themselves around Batman and Robin at all. One thing I didn't like about their characters is how they were only introduced so people in the real world wouldn't assume Batman and Robin were gay. I think you can still have Catherine and Bet interact with the dynamic duo, but have them be more like rival crime fighters with the occasional team-ups. Catwoman should come off more as an anti-hero from the start, only try to provide for herself and not just do it for the thrill. Finally, Helena could kind of be like her New 52 self. Start off as Robin and work alongside her mom and dad, but due to multiverse shenanigans, she gets sent to Prime Earth. Once she realizes there is already Robin, she takes up the identity of the Huntress so nobody gets suspicious, then later keeping that identity when going back to Earth 2. As for Superman, his life will have similarities and differences. For instance, Clark's powers would develop into his teens, but he wouldn't become Superboy unlike his Earth 1 counterpart, and just try to continue his normal life. This begins to change with the death of his adopted parents due to old age. It's after this where he becomes the hero Superman and starts to work with the JSA. He is also employed at the Daily Star instead of the Daily Planet, but he still meets and marries Lois Lane. Power Girl is similar to both her pre-Crisis and post-New 52 self with this origin. She would land on Earth at the age of 14. Since Superman would be far more established at this point and a lot more older than Kara, she would see Clark and Lois as her parents. She would start to live a normal life until eventually becoming the hero Supergirl. She would even make friends with the new Robin, Helena. Once she gets sent to Prime Earth, she can no longer hold on to the Supergirl identity, as there is already one there, so she becomes Power Girl and sticks with it after returning. What would also happen is Val Zod would be found by Clark and be taken in as well. He would become the new Superboy and act as another sidekick for Clark. After Kara's disappearance and Clark's retirement, he becomes the new Superman, which surprises Kara when she returns. On a side note, I really liked Val Zod and thought he would have a nice take on Superman. I initially didn't want to include him as he didn't fit the Golden Age aesthetic I was going for, but I still think he's a worthy addition and couldn't just ignore him, no matter how much DC likes to eventually. Wonder Woman would probably have her debut in man's world during World War II. Her origins would have her be made from clay, unlike her Earth 1 counterpart, who would likely be a demigoddess. She would also meet Steve Trevor during World War II, similar to how it went down in the Wonder Woman movie. There isn't too much you can do with Wonder Woman besides giving her the classic skirt. We would still have the Infinity Inc. team acting as this universe's Teen Titans. They would also become recognized on this Earth as the new wonders of the world once all of the JSA retire. So, those are my arguments and pitches for either path for a hypothetical cinematic universe, or the current one that we have. I won't lie, I'm kind of at a crossroads here. I did make good arguments for both, and I think both solutions can work. Looking back at the history of the whole thing is just crazy to me. DC needed to explain what happened to the JSA, so they created Earth 2. Once that got too overly complicated, they condensed everything on one Earth, through a crisis on Infinite Earths. Then they kept releasing Elseworlds, and DC decided to bring back the Earth 2 and the Multiverse. This continued on in the New 52, but then Convergence was so bad that we haven't heard too much from that Earth 2 since. Of course, now I don't even know what DC Comics is doing, but it gets even worse with other media. Okay, so Arrowverse introduced Earth 2, then sort of erased it through Crisis, which was only done so crossovers would be less odd. The Tomorrowverse introduced Earth 2 and the Multiverse just to immediately erase it with another Crisis. Surprise, surprise. Then finally, DC goes into the Multiverse again with Peacemaker, which I thought was a dead topic by this point. Mind you, I am making this video before the finale of Peacemaker Season 2, so sorry if I sound a little ill-informed in some way. Despite all that, I cannot honestly say which I think is the better pathway to go through. While New Earth helps keep things more simple, you kind of rob yourself of any fun story concepts by erasing Earth 2. But by keeping Earth 2, you kind of create a way to get less attached to characters from here. If you think that the New Earth path works better for DC overall, just let me know in the comments. But if you think that Earth 2 is the better solution, you can also let me know in the comments. Despite how frustrating this topic is, I love talking about it. I feel as though more people don't understand the significance of this conversation, as the JSA and its adjacent characters are something DC needs to make use of and popularize. Either way, DC should just make up their mind on either path. That's all I have to say. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you again in the next video.
DC! Give me a Power Girl adaptation, and my life is yours!